Hey everyone, this is part one of the warrior archetype. Now, before I get into the archetype itself, I need you to please stay with me here for a couple of minutes because I have to get this across to you because it's very important, especially if you want to understand the whole concept of archetypes and use it in your own life. Now, the first thing I want to get across is that I don't really use the concept of archetypes in its traditional sense. I put a bit of a different spin on it, I tweaked it a little bit. And I want to explain to you why I did that and what's a bit different, okay? In my line of work and my passion is to help people become the best possible versions of themselves. And I needed something where I can show someone in an easy to understand way, in a basic way, which areas of themselves need work. I mean, how do you fix something if you don't even know where to start, where to focus? A lot of people, they focus on too many things. You get nothing done at the end of the day. You need to be able to know, okay, that side of me needs some work. It's a bit too much, I need to bring it down, or it's not developed enough, so I have to pick it up. You have to have that kind of framework. It just helps you to get it done easier and more efficiently. So a few years ago, I came across the concept of archetypes. And what I found is that there are many different frameworks and structures regarding archetypes. I mean, some of them are really complex, like more than 12 archetypes. And to understand them takes a lot of time. You have to go into each one. So it's quite complicated. It's great, don't get me wrong, but it takes a lot of time. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to get something that's easy to get across. Yes, it's just an overview, like there's many levels to it. It goes very in depth, but on the surface, it's easy to understand, okay? And that's when I came across the Jungian psychology's archetypes of the four main archetypes. So they've got the four male archetypes, the king, warrior, magician, and the lover. And I found that and it really stood out for me. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. But still, there are male archetypes and female archetypes. And this gets really complex because now you've got these different aspects. And yes, there are differences between the two genders, obviously. A lot of it's the masculine way of doing things and the feminine way of doing things. There are differences. But what I wanted to do was kind of find a mid-ground. So it's easy to understand for everybody, okay? Think of an athlete. An athlete has got different areas. They've got strength, they've got endurance, they've got speed, they've got cardio, balance, coordination, etc. There are many aspects to an athlete. And if you want to become an all-rounded, balanced athlete, you're going to have to work in all of those areas, right? Well, if you don't want to become a balanced athlete, that's cool as well. It's your choice at the end of the day. But I'm here to help people become balanced, to help them become the best possible version of themselves everywhere. So the downside with not being a balanced, let's use the athlete example. Let's say you're an athlete and you've spent years spending time on getting as strong as possible. You lifted weights and you focused on strength, right? Suddenly you find yourself in a situation that requires you to run a very long distance in a fast time. You're going to have to call upon your cardio and endurance and etc. And if you haven't worked on that, you won't be able to handle that situation. You just can't, because the side of you that you have to call upon to do that isn't developed enough. If that makes sense. And once again, if that's your decision to not do that, that's fine. I'm just here to help you if you do want to become all-rounded, right? Now, I found that we also internally, we have different aspects as well. Just like strength, speed, we have different areas. And in life, we go through different circumstances that call upon different areas of ourselves, okay? And that's where the archetypes came from, is to put it in, you could say boxes, because it's easier for people to understand, where I can tell you, hey, what you're going through now calls you to call upon that area of yourself, okay? Which could be the king, the queen, the warrior, whatever it is. And if that's not developed, you can have trouble. So that's what I need you to understand. Now, here's the next thing. The warrior in Jungian psychology is seen as a male archetype, and I understand why, and I get it. But the way I teach the warrior archetype, I use it in both genders. And I'm going to explain to you why. For me, the warrior archetype represents the following. The side of you that's designed to take action, get things done. The side of you that's in line with doing, and that's one piece. You know, when you talk to people about the warrior, first thing they think is fighting, combat. That's a part of it. Don't get me wrong. That's a part of the warrior archetype. Sometimes you have to. You have to call upon that side of yourself to defend yourself, defend your loved ones, or, defend whatever you need to defend. If you don't have that side, you can't do that. And let's not sugarcoat it, everyone. Our life is quite dangerous, a dangerous world. And to think nothing ever is going to happen to you or your family, in my opinion, it's kind of ignorant, okay? It's not responsible. Rather have the skills, have the warrior spirit, and not need it than need it and you don't have it. Okay, that's super important for me. I believe that we should all be prepared in case. Now, what's very important as well is the following. I said it's about action and doing. So when you go to work, you do any type of physical activity. Let's take work first. You go to work, you have to pay the bills, you get your work done. That you're going to have to access the warrior archetype to do that. You're going to have to get into your warrior archetype, the part of you that's there to drive, motivated, gets the job done, focus, perseverance, dedication. That's the part of you you're going to tap into. So if your warrior archetype isn't fully developed, you're going to struggle to do that. You're going to be pretty lazy. You're not going to get things done. The type of person that always says, yeah, I really want to do that, but they never really get around doing it. They just say they're going to do it, but they never really do it. That's the warrior archetype. So if you have an overly developed warrior archetype, you become like a workaholic. All you do is work, 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 work. You're always busy. That is the downside. You're tapping in too much into that side of yourself. And there are many pros and cons, which I'll get into in part 2, about the two negative sides of this warrior archetype. So that's how I explain it. I explain this archetype as an aspect of yourself, and you can be undercharged, which means you're leaning towards the undercharged side, or you can be overcharged, which means you're tapping in too much of it, and then you become imbalanced. So that's how I teach this concept. And I found people really understand it, and we've changed a lot of lives just using this concept. So it really works, okay? So back to the warrior. So when you get things done, when you go to work, any type of action requires the warrior. If you have to do some work around the house, you have to go work in the garden, you call upon the warrior archetype. It's the archetype of action. So like I said, undercharged warrior, you're lazy. You'll never get anything done. You don't have discipline. You don't have perseverance, focus, that determination. You don't have that. You lack that. See how this fits in. Another example is the warrior archetype is a side of us that's got courage, bravery, that we face things we're really scared of. People always think that being brave or courage is the absence of fear, and nothing can be further from the truth, everyone. You can't be courageous, you can't be brave if you're not scared. Bravery and courage is facing what you're scared of, despite the fact that you're scared of it. You could be scared to death. Let's put this in a practical example. You have to have a discussion with your boss, and you're really scared. You don't really want to do it because it's a scary situation. Or maybe with your partner, you have to have a discussion with them. Maybe tell them something, face the music, and you're afraid to do it. You're going to have to call upon your warrior archetype to get that done, to be brave enough to face the music. And I always use these metaphorical things in these videos like the dragon. And when I talk about facing a dragon, that dragon can represent any type of issue in your life, any adversity. And a warrior goes and slays the dragon, which means the warrior stands up to this adversity, this issue, and they confront it and they conquer it. And that's the part of you that you have to access. And if that's not strong, you're not going to be able to do it. You see, and that's what I go into in part 2. It's explaining to you the two sides. Here, I want to talk about the balanced warrior, the one that we're striving for, okay? So, like I said, the warrior is there for action, courage, bravery, perseverance, discipline, focus. That's what the warrior is. Loyalty. The warrior is extremely loyal. Think of the cliche thing in movies. When someone saves the life of a warrior, that warrior is like, hey, I'm forever grateful for what you did, and I pledge my loyalty to you. Warriors, a balanced warrior, is extremely loyal. If you've got their back, they've got your back. And they'll do it until their dying breath. That's how loyal they are. They don't betray people. The only time a warrior, a balanced warrior, would revisit their loyalty is if it's not reciprocated. If you see that I'm showing you loyalty and it's not a two-way street, then it would be an act of self-love to say, hey, I'm not going to bump my head anymore, yeah. I'm going to put my loyalty somewhere else. That is totally acceptable. Obviously, it depends on the situation. Everybody's situations are different, but just a quick overview of loyalty. So the warrior's got all these qualities, and these qualities make up the balanced warrior. You have to have all of these qualities to be a balanced warrior. So, like I said, we tap into these things. Here's another example for you. You're going through a financially difficult time, and you know you're struggling to sleep, you're feeling stressed. Maybe you've got children, and you want to give the best possible life for them that you can. And by the way, when you're ruling your household and you're creating the best possible life for your children that you can, you're tapping into the king or queen archetype. That's that area of yourself. So if that's not fully developed, you're not going to be able to do that. You see, you're going to be an imbalanced parent. You're not going to be able to be a good ruler, which is kind of a parent. It's just like a word that I use for it. So you tap into that. And obviously there's another archetype I'll get into later, which is the nurturer. But I'll get into that, which is also necessary to create a proper life for your children. So we tap into these things, and each situation demands a different area of ourselves. And that's what this whole system is about, is to see, hey, when I'm in situations that require my warrior archetype to step up, I struggle, I crumble, I get scared, I panic, I get panic attacks, I can't deal with it. That means your warrior is undercharged, and we're going to have to try and pick it up. That's the purpose of this whole framework, is to show you which sides you tap into. When you're in relationships and you have to form deep connections and share and show intimacy, you're tapping into the lover archetype, which I'll also talk about later. These archetypes represent that circumstance that you're in. So if you struggle with relationships, you struggle with intimacy, you struggle with showing the softer side of yourself, then obviously the lover archetype needs some work. Do you see how this works? I just want to get that across in this video. So the warrior archetype, like I said, action, working, getting things done, showing bravery, courage, perseverance. The warrior is someone who would persevere. And they won't just persevere, they'll persevere in good spirit, with a good attitude, because the warrior understands the following. Your mindset is everything, guys. I see this in my line when I do martial arts and we do tournaments and training, etc. I see this a lot. Your state of mind determines what the experience will be like. I'm sure you've seen this. Just because you didn't want to do it, you're like, oh, I'm not in the mood to do this. You do it and it ends up feeling worse than what it should. Or maybe even you went in and you're like, hey, this is not so bad. I made it bad in my head. But what happens when you're in a good mood? I'm going to take a training session. I know this is not really relatable to everybody out there, but maybe you'll relate to what I'm saying or just put it in your own situation. You have to go gym. You have to go get in shape, because exercise and that kind of stuff, by the way, is also something that's based on the warrior archetype. If we have to ever call upon our warrior archetype to protect, to fight, because sometimes maybe someone wants to hurt your children and you're going to have to stand up and you're going to have to access that warrior side of you to protect them. Okay, you're going to have to access that, and your weapon that you're going to use is your body. So your body, your sword, your weapon must stay sharp. Otherwise, how are you going to do that? You're not going to be able to protect them, you see? So that's also warrior archetype. You have to look after yourself, remain healthy, stay sharp, mentally, physically, so you can conquer any form of adversity that you might face. The warrior is a protector. So now back to the point. You go and do a training session at the gym, okay? And you're not really in a good mood. You just had a fight with your partner, or maybe something went wrong at work and it was just terrible. You get to the training session and it just feels awful. You get tired faster. You just feel like it's a waste of a training session. And another day, you're in an awesome mood. Everything's just great. You're happy. You're feeling good. You go to the training session and it flies by. You're like, wow, I feel good. I feel like I can do more and my training session's done. It's all about your state of mind. Your state of mind determines your experience. And the warrior understands this. So when there's bad things happening, you look and you see, hey, there's bad things on the horizon. Adversity is on its way. You're going to have to understand that you have to persevere in good spirit. The warrior smiles at adversity because, number one, it's an opportunity to become better, to evolve, to become stronger and become a better warrior, to learn lessons and to, just become a better version of yourself if done correctly, if you handle it correctly. And the warrior understands this. The warrior perseveres. There's this classic saying that says, fall down 7 times, get up 8 times. And that's the warrior's mentality. A warrior refuses to surrender, refuses to quit. When things go bad and they say, listen, we're in deep waters here. We're in big trouble. The warrior won't sit down and be like, oh no, it's all going to fall apart. The undercharged warrior would do that because their warrior spirit isn't that fully developed. The person with a fully developed warrior spirit would stand up and say, okay, we're in for a rough ride, everyone. This is going to be tough, but we're going to make it. I refuse to surrender. I refuse to lose. I refuse to let this situation beat me. Not a chance. Not a chance. I'm not going to lay down and get kicked while I'm on the ground. I'm going to go out swinging. Because if I don't pull this off, if I don't get this victory, if I don't push through, the people behind me, my family, my children, the people who I'm protecting, the people who's looking up to me, they're going to fall down with me. And that's what the warrior does. The warrior says, there's no way. I'm going to push through. I'm going to persevere. The warrior understands that. Think of it, I always have this image in my head, and everybody's got their own image that speaks to them, right? I've got this image of a warrior walking, and think of everything that goes wrong in your life. Every adversity is an arrow that's being shot, and it goes straight into you. And you go, bah, and then there's arrow, and it's painful. The warrior in its fullness, the balanced warrior, looks at that arrow, moves on, another arrow, boom, he doesn't take his eye off the target, breaks the arrow, move forward, move forward. The warrior pushes through. When there's adversity, he pushes through. He keeps working, and that's important. Remember, the balanced warrior also understands there's a time to recharge. There's a time to pull back, to not be on the front lines all the time. Where the excessive warrior is in the front lines the whole time, pushing, 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 and they end up burning themselves out quite often. Where the balanced warrior knows, hey, there's a time to hang back. There's a time to look after me. A little bit of self-care, a little bit of quiet time, a little bit of recharge time. Otherwise, I can't fight these battles. I don't have the energy. My battery is low. I need to work on that. I need to fill myself up again so I can push and do what I need to do. So there's always balance, guys. There's always balance. That's the message mainly about these archetypes, is balance. So I hope that this gives you a basic understanding of the warrior archetype. In part 2, I go into this a lot more in detail, and it should give you a fuller understanding. But the warrior is the side of us that we call upon when we're facing adversity, when we have to get things done. We have to push at work and achieve our goals. The drive, courage, bravery, loyalty, all of those things are in the warrior archetype. And we have to call upon that in certain circumstances in life. Life gets really tough. Really tough. I'm sure you've seen this. Sometimes life throws you with the curveball. You didn't see it coming. And now you're on the back foot. If your warrior spirit isn't strong, you're going to be brought to your knees. But we have to understand, hey, let's push. Let's go. I'm not going to go out like this. Let's move. The warrior needs that drive, that fire. They need that. That aggression. And a lot of times people misunderstand aggression. Watch part 2. I go into aggression in detail, explaining what I mean by that. So this is important. I know a lot of people see the warrior side of us as a bad thing. They see it as destructive, as toxic. It's bad. We shouldn't have that in our society. Well, they're kind of right, because they've been on the receiving end, probably, of the imbalanced warrior. The warrior side of us can be very destructive, because the warrior has a sword, a weapon. And in part 2, I go into what that weapon is. And that weapon can be used to hurt people. It can be used to destroy things. But we have to understand that there's a good side to the warrior. There's a bad side, a dark side, and a good side. A lot of people base their understanding of the warrior side of us on the bad side. They've been on the side of abusive relationships. And now they say, you see what can happen. And they're right. It can happen. Think of it like this. A sword or a knife in itself isn't bad. It's not going to hurt someone by itself. Someone has to use it for negative things. But it can also be used for good things. And the power of the warrior, the weapon of the warrior, can be used for good or it can be used for bad. And that depends how balanced you are as an individual. We have to understand that. It's not the weapon itself that's bad. It's just because there's not a lot of balanced warriors in our society. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of humbleness, humility to say, hey, I need to humble myself, reflect inward and see where can I become better? Which of my traits are toxic? What can I fix within myself? And that's very important. The last thing that I want to get into before I finish this video, and the rest I'll talk about in part 2, is the warrior, besides the discipline, the dedication, the warrior doesn't just give up. The warrior understands that things take time. I need to push. I need to be persistent. You know, it's not going to happen overnight. The warrior is disciplined. He gets up every day. He or she gets up every day. And they work towards the goal diligently over and over and over. And they put in the work over a long time period. And where you see someone with an undercharged warrior, they usually give up quite quickly. If they don't get results, they don't stick with something. They start something, they get this idea, they start it, and then it just phases out. Where the balanced warrior understands dedication is key, perseverance is key. Every day we build another building block, 1% every day. We just keep working. That's what this warrior has got. And lastly, emotional detachment is also important. A lot of people who's in the excessive side is emotionally distant. They're very cold individuals, very harsh. And I see that a lot, and I speak about that in part 2. I see that a lot in my field. But the warrior has to have the ability, the balanced warrior, to emotionally detach in certain situations. And it's a choice, okay? If you're on one of the dark sides or the undercharged or overcharged side, you don't have a choice. It's just who you are, okay? If you're excessive, you'll just be cold. You will have an inability to be able to be emotionally attached to something. You're just cold. You're distant. Where on the undercharged side, you get like too emotional about everything. You get too emotionally attached to everything. Everything is about you. When someone does something, you're like, oh, it's because they don't like me. You're too involved in that way, okay? Where the balanced warrior has got a choice. In some circumstances, I can detach if it's needed. Like, for example, if I have to protect my family or make a decision that's not the best decision now, it's not a nice decision. Maybe you have to let someone go at work. You have to let someone go. But you have to. It's not a nice thing to do. You feel sorry for them. You feel terrible. The warrior has the ability to emotionally detach temporarily to do things they need to do. The warrior is about action, and the warrior has to do his duty in certain circumstances. And in order to do that, they're going to have to detach a little bit. And that's also something the warrior has to be able to do. They've got control over when it happens and when it doesn't happen. The balanced warrior has got total control over their weapon, over their sword, which is their warrior side. And that's very important. So I hope that this video and part 2 helps you to form a better understanding of the warrior and helps you to become more in touch with that side.